So in this video, let's go ahead and start off with some high-level things that you can do right here on the make screen, on the main screen for the make page. And we're going to cover the configure deadlines functionality on Katana. And what this is it's what measures factory level throughput. Now, if you're coming in fresh and you've never really dealt with something like this, then I guess the easiest way to describe it is that let's say you have a manufacturing team, and it might consist of, let's say, 5 people. And all 5 of those people each work 40 hours per week. And so in your factory, if you were only tracking man hours, assuming that human resource is the main thing that drives your production, then you can specify a weekly throughput of 200 hours of operation within your factory on a high level. Now, when we get into more comprehensive manufacturing, it's not only factory level throughput, you actually have workstation level throughput, which is called resource level throughput. And this gets into the areas of what we call resource level capacity planning and understanding. For example, as I had mentioned in previous videos, let's say you have 2 sewing machines and one of them is available and one is not, then being able to route your manufacturing through a certain sewing machine that is available, it all comes down to how those availabilities will calculate when something that's being made actually gets done. So there's a relationship taking place. In this case, it's the entire factory as it relates to all of your manufacturing orders. But in other instances, when you take it another level lower or level deeper, then it gets to be, how does a workstation manage the available resources for a task? So the relationship is kind of more granular as you get deeper into the manufacturing process down to the task level. But this is the factory level. So factory level throughput. I have a team of people in my facility that work 200 hours of operations per week. So what this is actually doing is Katana gives you the opportunity to predict the production deadline here in your manufacturing queue. And the manufacturing queue production deadlines are calculated based on your weekly throughput. So there are a couple of parameters that are really static in Katana at the moment, and of course these will become available in the future as we continue to expand our features. But the way this works is that a manufacturing order that exists on your manufacturing queue has a specified amount of time that it takes to make that single unit of product. So in this case, this item takes 15 hours. And because it is the highest in the list in terms of priority, it's what's going to be completed first. So this is the relationship that the time it takes to make something gets worked on first, and then that corresponds to the production deadline, which is calculated based on the deadline configuration. So if I have 200 hours of operational capacity from the people that work in the manufacturing company per week, then it means that I should have the capability to produce 200 hours in this queue worth of manufacturing orders within 1 week. So as you can see, my total planned production time is 173 hours. My total factory throughput on a weekly basis is 200 hours. So when is your manufacturing actually taking place? That's another good question. If your manufacturing facility is open from just regular day hours from 9 until 6, for example, this is currently how Katana is set. So we actually operate within the working hours. Larger manufacturing companies, on the other hand, will maybe have 2 or 3 shifts. So they could be starting from morning until 10 o'clock at night, or they might even have a graveyard shift overnight, which is called third shift, doing this as well. So there's a lot of ways of looking at it from that perspective. So with respect to the deadline configurator, it's actually allocating the available chunks of time on a daily basis within a 5-day work week between 9 and 6 p.m. So that's how it works. And so in the case of our 200 hours of available throughput, you'll see actually that the production deadline will be anything within the next within the next week, because I have a weekly throughput of 200 man hours. Then I'll actually complete my manufacturing within 5 days if I have 173 hours worth of work in the queue. And also, like touching base on this, is that the production deadline updates based on your inputs for the total throughput, and also based on their position in the queue. Because as the time that's available per day is segmented, that determines how and what can be manufactured within the queue. So for example, with 200 hours of weekly throughput, it's actually taking the 5-day work week and dividing 200 by 5, which is equal to 40 hours per day. So what you'll see in this case is I have 15 plus 14, which is close to 30, plus another 9, but that's still under 40. And if I have 40 hours of available throughput on a daily basis, then you can see that the production deadline is actually on the 10th of December. And since we also skip weekends and only focus on weekdays, then which tomorrow is Saturday and then the next day is Sunday, then it pushes it out to the next Monday based on the other 40-hour gap of available time. And it keeps getting pushed out over the extent of the work week, in the event that it fits within, or it doesn't fit within, the 40-hour availabilities within a single day. So if you have a situation where, let's say, maybe half of your team is out for whatever reason, could be holidays, could be any other case, then you'll notice that today, being the 10th of December in the morning, if I were to cut my total workload, or cut my total capacity from 200 to 100 available hours in weekly throughput, then you'll notice that my production deadlines will also update. So once I do this and mark it as done, then these update and it becomes twice as long, because now the available hours per day went from 40 to 20. So that means my manufacturing orders are going to start getting pushed out as a result of that issue. But I could still get, based on this, all of those orders done within less than 2 weeks. So in that instance, what is also happening here, let's say we bring it back, is as you're changing the priority of your orders and you're using the automatic calculation of deadlines, in turn, you're also adjusting the production deadline of that individual manufacturing order in real time by moving it up and down the queue. So if you take, let's say, manufacturing order number 9 and push it from the bottom to the top using our drag and drop, then you'll see that it changed from the 15th to the 10th based on the fact that it's the first in line of prioritization. Let's say I bring it back down, and then again, you'll see it jumps from the 10th to the 15th. Now, another thing worth looking at, which will be really handy to understand from the operation or task level perspective, is that dragging and dropping a manufacturing order also affects the tasks lists. So manufacturing orders will have tasks associated, and if you're looking inside of your task list, without getting too far ahead of myself, you'll see that manufacturing order number 9 is at the bottom of the queue for each resource that would be working on it. Now, if a change is taking place live on the manufacturing order level, then that manufacturing order number 9 on the task list also changes its position in the queue for, let's say, operations being performed at the table saw or operations being performed at the paint booth. And that is basically how this live planner, not just for planning the availability of your materials, which is something we're going to cover in the next video, but also how it's affecting how operations are organized across your organization in the manufacturing floor. So that's a little overview of how the configure deadlines function works and how it affects the production deadline date. The last bit about this is that you also have the option to turn this off, meaning that you could set production deadlines manually for every single manufacturing order if you desire. Now, if you do that, the problem here is that you'll have a different position of the deadline in the queue. So you might have this completely out of order. For example, you could have, let's say, the 10th of December here at the bottom and the 15th at the top. So it would be a little bit backwards in terms of position in the queue and how that's organized. But some businesses do leave that turned off for various reasons. And we just leave that flexibility open in case you don't desire to use the configure deadline calculator. But this calculator can also be used, it will be tracking your last 7 days actual. I haven't completed any manufacturing orders on this, but it will be tracking like the actual amount of time that was really truly spent on your manufacturing operations over the last 7 days. And you can use that like as you're progressing using the manufacturing tool to update your weekly throughput as a new input in order to keep things like moving forward and up to date in general. If you hire new people to your team, then your weekly throughput may increase. And it might be set at 100, but if you hired a new guy, you might actually have 140 hours of weekly throughput. So there's a lot of things to keep an eye on in terms of tracking your actual operations. Okay, so that's it for the deadline configurator. Next, we will cover the topic of our real-time planner.